Hello detectives, and welcome to my video for February. As usual, I'm going to be talking about what I've been doing, what I've been reading, and what else I've been enjoying. And I'm going to begin with what's going on with me and my books this month. Well, as you know, I've been working on the sequel to the London Eye mystery called the Guggenheim Mystery. That is currently off being copy edited. It's going to another editor who's going to look at it to check all the sentences make sense, to check that it reads really well. But this other editor also looks for things that just don't work, that aren't correct in the book. Before the copy edit of Murder Most Unladylike, I had written a scene where the girls go up to the sports field and do hockey practice at 6 o'clock in the evening. And I thought this was fine, my editor thought this was fine, until it got to the copy editor. And she looked at it and pointed out that in November, it would have been dark at 6 o'clock, and in 1934, there probably wouldn't have been lights on the playing field, so there was no way that the girls could go and do a hockey practice at 6 o'clock on a November evening in Britain in 1934. So we had to change that. So that's what she's doing for the Guggenheim mystery at the moment. And hopefully she'll be able to catch all of the problems that we just didn't notice because we'd been working on the book for too long. At the moment, I am in the planning stages of book 6, which if you've been watching the last few videos, you'll know is going to take place in Hong Kong. It is going to be about Hazel's family. When I actually write my books, I write them on the computer. I type them all up so I can type really fast. But when I'm planning, I do use a notebook, and here is the notebook that I've been using. It's Hufflepuff yellow because I am a Hufflepuff, and I've made lots of notes on all the books I've been reading to learn about the history of Hong Kong. I've made notes on plot ideas. I've made notes on what the building that Hazel would have lived in would look like. So it's really, really interesting, and I have to keep this notebook top secret. I found out a lot of things about Hong Kong and its culture. Most of those things are so interesting and I've made notes on them, but they probably won't be able to fit into the final book. I thought that I would share with you one thing that I have discovered that I think is particularly fascinating. And if you are a crime fan and a history fan, you will probably really like as well. And it is the story of one of Hong Kong's most famous poisoning cases. In 1857, China and Britain were at war. They were at war in the Second Opium War. Basically, the British wanted to sell opium to the Chinese, which is something you don't really think about today. You think of opium as coming from China. That isn't true. The British brought it there and sold it to the Chinese. So Hong Kong, which was mostly Chinese with some British people, was a really difficult, quite stressful, tense place to be. And there was, at that point in Hong Kong, a bakery called the Yi Sing Bakery. This was the only westernized bakery in Hong Kong, the only place where you could get your Western loaves of bread and cakes if you were a white European. This bakery was owned by a man called Ah-Lum, who was obviously Chinese, and this bakery was quite close to a garrison of British soldiers, which is like a place where all the British soldiers live when they're not out fighting. And one morning in January, everyone got up, they had their breakfast, and they all became extremely ill. Now, hundreds and hundreds of people were affected, including the governor and his wife, Lady Bowering. All the soldiers were ill, everyone was really sick, they were throwing up everywhere. And very luckily, none of them died, but it turned out that what had happened was Ah-Lum had poisoned his entire batch of baking with arsenic. He probably had meant to kill people, but very luckily for the people he poisoned, he didn't manage to do it because he put too much arsenic in and it just made them throw up instead of killing them. He went to trial and it was pretty obvious that he had done it. He was convicted and that pretty much was the end of that. But I just love this story. It's all about culture clashes. It's about the fact that Ah-Lum probably didn't like all the soldiers being near his bakery. They were probably quite noisy and unpleasant, and he was probably quite angry at them on a personal level, as well as the fact that the Chinese and the British were at war. Now, talking about book 6, we have another very exciting announcement. We haven't yet revealed the title, which will come in April probably. We haven't yet revealed the cover, which will once again be illustrated by the wonderful Nina Tara, who does all of the covers for all of my books. But what we have revealed, and the reason why I am wearing this lovely teal dress and these lovely blue earrings, is that book 6 is going to be teal. You can probably guess that we are running out of colors. We have done red, orange, yellow, blue, green, and purple for Cream Buns and Crime. So we've had to go a little bit back on ourselves and choose this teal color, but I think it's really striking, it's really pretty, and it's going to look really lovely next to the rest of the books. I'm building up the most incredible rainbow. Apart from all of that writing, I do have a bit of time to read, and I'm going to talk to you about some of the books that I've really been enjoying lately. I'm going to start off with this beautiful book called Nightlights. Nightlights is a graphic novel, and it is all about a little girl who has the ability to draw worlds that she then goes to play in her imagination, or possibly not her imagination. This is one of my favorite pages. You can see how incredibly beautiful the artwork is. It's by Lorena Alvarez, and she both writes and illustrates the book. I just think this is the most fantastically beautiful book. It is so imaginative. It is so incredibly well drawn and created, and I just loved it. I think if you're a graphic novel fan, if you're an art fan, you will absolutely adore this book. I'd say it's probably for about 7 or 8 plus. Now, the next choice is my middle grade pick for this month, and it's a book you've probably seen around if you've been in any bookshops this month. It is Who Let the Gods Out by Maz Evans. This is the story of Elliot, who seems to be a normal boy until one day the gods basically invade his house. I am a huge myth fan, so this was a joy to me as somebody who kind of knew the characters already and was feeling like I was coming back to them. But if you don't know the stories, if you've never heard them before, this book is pretty much a great place for you to discover them for the first time. It's incredibly funny. All the characters are really wonderful. You will love Elliot. You will sort of feel very connected to him. And again, I would say this is for about 8 plus. My next book is a bit older. It is a YA book. It is Bone Gap by Laura Ruby, but this is a YA book that I think is a little bit closer to being an adult book. I think you probably won't enjoy it until you're about 14 or older. Again, it is a book that's a little bit about myths. It is based on one myth that I won't tell you which one it is, because it was a real shock and joy to me when I finally realized what the myth was that was being told. But it's the story of a small town in America called Bone Gap. It's a place where the corn maybe talks to you. It's a place where animals kind of appear and disappear in the middle of the night. It's a place you can get on a horse and ride into another realm of being. So it's 2 sides of the book. One side is the kidnapped girl Rosa as she struggles to get away from her captor, and the other side is the boys she was living with when she got abducted, trying to find her and work out where she has gone. It's a beautiful book. It's a wonderful story about saving yourself, saving your friends, about love and all the different types of love that there can be. My next book is a kind of book that I haven't recommended before, an adult book, and it is called The Secret Lives of the Amir Sisters. Now, I've picked this book for one very obvious reason, because even if you are not an adult, you will know who Nadiya is. She won the Bake Off. I love her. I'm pretty sure the whole country loves her. So I was really excited to hear that she was working on a book. The other reason that I have chosen this book is that the person that she's working on the book with is Ayisha Malik. Now, Ayisha Malik has written a book called Sophia Khan Is Not Obliged that I really enjoyed. It's a romance novel. It's very funny and sweet, and it's all about a Muslim woman living in London and working in publishing. So I thought it was fantastic. This book, again, is about a family of Muslim women. And it's really exciting to me because not only do I know that Ayisha Malik is a great writer and Nadiya is a wonderful person, but I have almost never seen a book about a group of Muslim women where the Muslim women are just living their lives in Britain, falling in love, arguing with each other, living their family life. And that's the plot of the novel. I'm really excited that Nadiya has got the chance to help tell this story and that Ayisha has got the chance to help her tell it. I think it's something that you will really enjoy. It's very gentle, it's very sweet, there's a baking element to it. It's all about family life. I would say it probably is appropriate for anyone older than 12. And finally, I always end by choosing a classic crime novel that has influenced me and I think you'll still enjoy. And this month, because it's February, I have chosen a book that's a little bit about love as well as murder. It is Strong Poison by Dorothy Sayers. Now, Dorothy Sayers is most famous for creating the detective Peter Wimsey. He is a lord, he's very posh, he's a little bit like Uncle Felix. But this is the book where Lord Peter Wimsey meets someone else, someone who completes his detective team, and that is Harriet Vane. Harriet Vane is an artist and she becomes his love interest, but also sort of his fellow detective. In my head, Miss Lipton and Uncle Felix are a little bit like Harriet Vane and Lord Peter Wimsey. So you'd be interested in this book for that reason. But it's also, in its own right, a fantastic murder mystery, and it's got a really personal touch to it, which I love. So Lord Peter Wimsey meets Harriet Vane because Harriet Vane is the main suspect in a murder. The police think that she has poisoned her boyfriend. Harriet Vane has all of the motive, she has the opportunity, it seems like she has definitely done it. Peter Wimsey knows that she hasn't and knows that he has to save her by working out who really did it. But it seems like an almost impossible crime to solve. And I love this book. It's fantastic. I would say, like most of Dorothy Sayers' books, they're for slightly older crime readers, so maybe 13, 14. And finally, I'm going to talk about one thing this month that I have been really enjoying that isn't bookish. And for February, my choice is the movie Hidden Figures. I got to go see an early screening of it yesterday and I thought it was completely fantastic. It is the story of the American space race at the point when the Americans are being beaten by the Russians. The Russians started sending things into space. They sent dogs and they sent a real person, Yuri Gagarin, when the Americans just kind of kept crashing things into the sea and blowing things up, and they were very depressed. That's a story that I think quite a few people know already, but Hidden Figures tells that story in a completely new and interesting way by telling the stories of 3 Black women who helped change the course of that race. This is not a story that I have heard told before. It's not a story that really gets told because in general, when American history is told, it's told through the lens of white people, usually white men. And not that there weren't white men, there were, but there were also people who weren't men, who weren't white, who were making incredibly important contributions, and all of the women in Hidden Figures were amazing mathematicians and engineers and were genuinely crucial in shaping the space race. I loved seeing an entire film about Black women saving the country, basically. And it's a really exciting thing to watch. It's a really exciting story, even though I basically knew what was going to happen. I was on the edge of my seat. Mary and Catherine and Dorothy are people who we should know about, we should be talking about today. When I write historical novels, I really do try to bring in people from other cultures, other races, because I know that history wasn't white, and it makes me sad that so many books and films behave as though that is a truth. George and Hazel and Harold are all in my books because, not only because I want to put them in, but because they really could have been there, they should have been there, they would have been there in the 1930s. And that is what Hidden Figures shows, that you can write a story about the space race, about 3 Black women, and it's not fiction, it's absolutely real. That is the reality of history. And that's what I keep trying to tell my readers and I keep trying to talk about. So I'm so excited to have seen that film and to know that it's doing so phenomenally well in America. It's wonderful. You should definitely go see it. If you're a history fan, I would say that it's appropriate for anyone about 11, 12 plus. It's a PG certificate. So that is pretty much it. That is my roundup for this month. I've got a couple more exciting announcements that I may be filming a special video for later in the month, but for now, that is everything. So have a great month, read a lot, watch a lot of exciting films, do a lot of fun things, and I will see you in March when I hope I'll be able to tell you about the beginnings of my first draft of book 6. Bye-bye.